Hey there, welcome back to Safe Simple Sound. Today's episode is something really special. We are diving into what I call a financial vaccine for our kids, an approach to set them up for a lifetime of financial health and resilience. I am excited to have our AI voices discuss this concept with some practical insights on building a strong financial foundation. Let's get into it.
Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're going deep on this idea of a financial vaccine for your kids.
Yeah, it's a really catchy phrase, isn't it? But right off the bat, gotta clarify, no needles involved here.
Definitely not the kind of vaccine you get at the doctor's office.
Right. It's a metaphor, but a powerful one when you think about how we set our kids up for success financially. And the source material really emphasizes starting from day one, like literally from birth.
Okay, so help us unpack this financial vaccine metaphor a bit. What makes it different from how most people plan for their kids' finances?
Well, think about it. We usually plan for the big things way later down the line, college, retirement, things like that.
Yeah, it's always this reaction to a need that comes up.
Exactly. A financial vaccine is different. It's like building immunity, but for their financial future. You're being proactive, not reactive.
So instead of scrambling when those big expenses hit, we're building something solid from the very beginning.
Exactly. And the sources really hit on this idea of setting your child up as a financial pioneer. It's not just about handing them money later on, but giving them resources they can leverage on their own terms for whatever they want to do.
I love that image of financial pioneer. It suggests independence, freedom to forge their own path. The sources use a contrasting example of relying on something like Social Security. Why is that different?
Social Security is super important. It's a safety net, but it's meant to catch you if you fall, not necessarily launch you toward your dreams.
So it's more about survival than thriving.
Yeah, think of it that way. A financial vaccine, on the other hand, it's about building something that grows over time, giving your child control and choices. Imagine them graduating college, not with debt, but with funds to put towards a house, start a business, travel the world even. It's about options.
Okay, so we've got this metaphor, but how do we actually put it into practice? The sources point to whole life insurance as being a key part of this. Now, that might seem a little surprising to some people.
I get it. Most people think life insurance is, well, about what happens when you die, not about a child's future, right?
Yeah, it's not usually the first thing that comes to mind when you think about planning for your kids.
But whole life insurance is different because it's got this built-in savings component called cash value. It's protection plus this pot of money that grows over time.
So it's not just about what happens if something happens to the parent. There's this separate fund that's growing for the child right from the start.
Yeah, you got it. And this is where the sources get really interesting. They use these case studies that bring this to life. One example was Emily, whose parents got her whole life insurance when she was born. By the time she finished college, she had this chunk of money she could access.
Wow, so she graduated with options, not just a diploma.
Exactly. She had the flexibility to follow her passions without being weighed down by debt or financial limitations.
It's almost like graduating with a secret weapon, a financial head start most people don't have.
The sources also talk about Michael, who didn't have this kind of foundation. Social Security was there, sure, but he felt stuck, limited in what he could do, and wished he'd had more resources early on. These stories really hammer home the difference between reacting to needs versus proactively building something from the get-go.
So we're seeing the potential of this financial vaccine, but what about the specifics? The sources mention something called a secured framework. What's that about?
So the folks behind this idea, Safe, Simple, Sound, they use the secured framework to evaluate financial strategies. Stands for safe, simple, and sound. It's about building a financial foundation that's secure, easy to understand, and built on proven principles.
Let's break that down a bit. What do those mean in the context of this financial vaccine?
Safe means shielding your child's future from stuff like wild market swings and economic uncertainty. Whole life insurance often has guaranteed growth, unlike things like stocks that go up and down like crazy.
So creating a safe haven for their money to grow steadily, even if things are chaotic out there.
You got it. Then there's simple. Safe, Simple Sound believes finances shouldn't be this confusing maze of jargon. Whole life insurance, at its core, it's pretty straightforward. You pay premiums, the cash value grows, and you can access it when you need it. No need to be a financial expert to understand it.
That's a huge relief. Financial stuff can be so intimidating. But what about sound? How does that apply here?
Sound is all about making sure your strategy is built on solid principles that stand the test of time. Whole life insurance, with its guaranteed growth and the death benefit if needed, it just makes sense for the long haul. It's a reliable foundation for financial well-being.
So tying those principles together, it seems like whole life insurance fits in with Safe Simple Sound's philosophy. It's about creating a secure, straightforward, and sustainable financial base for your child.
Exactly. It goes back to that financial pioneer image. It's about equipping them with the tools to chart their own course financially, to be independent, pursue their dreams confidently. But of course, no financial strategy is perfect. I'm sure some folks are thinking, hold on, what are the downsides here?
That's a great point. We've been focusing on the positives, but it's important to look at the whole picture. Are there any concerns or challenges with using whole life insurance as part of this financial vaccine?
Absolutely. And the sources address some of these head on. One biggie is the cost. Premiums for whole life can be higher than, say, term life insurance, which is just for protection.
Right, because with whole life, you're paying for that cash value growth for your child, so it makes sense the premiums would be higher.
Exactly. But the sources counter that by emphasizing the certainty and guaranteed growth you get with whole life. The premiums might be higher, but you're getting a guaranteed return, unlike the stock market, which is unpredictable.
So it's about peace of mind, knowing your child's financial future is protected, even if the economy goes haywire. But what about the time it takes? The sources mention that whole life takes time to show its full benefit.
True. It's not some get-rich-quick scheme. It's a long-term strategy. You won't see massive returns overnight. Remember that pioneer analogy. It's about a steady journey towards financial security.
Playing the long game, planting those seeds early and watching them grow over time.
Exactly. And it's worth noting, the sources also address that not everyone in the family might be on board with this. Like, what if you're excited about this financial vaccine, but your child has different ideas about their finances?
That's a good point. We assume everyone will be as enthusiastic as we are about this.
The sources acknowledge this and really emphasize that your role as the parent, the financial pioneer, is to start the conversation, educate your kids about different options, but ultimately respect their choices.
It's about providing tools and knowledge, not dictating their financial path.
Right. It's about empowering them to be financially responsible and make decisions that match their own values and goals.
That makes a lot of sense. Guiding, not controlling. And it's key to remember that what worked for one generation might not be the best fit for the next.
Absolutely. Financial landscapes change and individual needs vary. It's about being adaptable and finding what works best for your family.
And before we move on, I wanted to touch on one last thing. The sources seem to suggest that whole life insurance and Social Security, they're not mutually exclusive. Can you expand on that?
Absolutely. The sources make it clear. These two approaches can work together, complementing each other. Whole life insurance is the proactive element, the vaccine you're building from day one for control and flexibility. Social Security is the safety net, the backup if things go wrong. It's about having both a proactive foundation that grows steadily and that safety net for added security.
That's a great way to frame it. It's not an either situation. It's about utilizing both approaches for a more well-rounded and resilient financial plan for your child.
Exactly. And that's what the financial vaccine is all about, a holistic approach to your child's financial well-being, starting right from the very beginning. You know, it's interesting, this whole financial vaccine idea, it really makes you think differently about life insurance.
How so?
Well, we usually think of it as like protection for your loved ones if something happens to you.
Right, that's the traditional view.
Yeah, it's about taking care of those left behind. But the financial vaccine flips that script.
Mm.
It becomes an investment in your children's future, a way to give them financial security and opportunities right from the start.
So less about protection in case you're gone and more about actively empowering them while you're here.
Exactly. It goes back to that idea of being a financial pioneer for your family. It's not just leaving a legacy in the traditional sense, but actually shaping the financial landscape for future generations.
Like blazing a trail for them to follow, giving them a head start.
Precisely. And something that really stood out to me in the sources was how whole life insurance can help with specific financial needs that kids will face down the line.
Oh, interesting. Can you give some examples?
Sure. The sources talk about a few key areas where this financial vaccine can really make a difference, like education. College is expensive, and it's only getting more so. Having access to those funds from a whole life insurance policy could help cover tuition, books, living expenses, all that.
It could be a huge relief financially for both the child and the family.
Absolutely. And it could give the child more freedom to pursue their passions, without being limited by money.
That's a powerful thought. What other areas did the sources mention?
They also talked about starting a business. So many young people dream of being entrepreneurs these days.
Yeah, it's a huge trend.
Right. Well, having access to that capital from a whole life insurance policy could give them the seed money to actually get started, to turn those ideas into reality.
It's like giving them the financial runway to take risks and be innovative.
Exactly. It aligns with empowering them to be financially independent and self-sufficient.
You know, something I'm curious about, the sources talk about whole life insurance as a way to build wealth. But isn't it mainly a protection tool? How does that wealth building aspect work?
Great question. Remember that cash value component we talked about?
Right, like a savings account within the policy.
Exactly. A portion of your premiums goes towards that, and it grows over time, often at a guaranteed rate. It's like a slow and steady investment, but it's protected from all those market ups and downs.
So it's not about getting rich quick, it's about building wealth gradually over the long term.
Precisely. And the sources highlight the power of compound interest with whole life insurance. The longer the policy is in place, the more that cash value can potentially grow exponentially.
It's like a snowball effect, building momentum as it rolls.
Exactly. And here's another great thing. That cash value grows tax deferred,
Meaning,
meaning you don't pay taxes on the growth until you withdraw the money, so your investment can compound even faster.
so it's like a triple win. Protection, guaranteed growth, and tax advantages.
You got it. And the sources point out that cash value isn't just sitting there. You have options for accessing it if needed.
Like what kinds of options?
Well, you can typically borrow against the cash value if you need money for a big purchase like a house or a car, or you can even use it to supplement your retirement income down the road.
So it's like having a financial safety net you can tap into if life throws you a curveball.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And because the cash value is growing steadily, it can provide that financial stability, that peace of mind, knowing you've got resources available.
This financial vaccine concept is really starting to click. It's not just about protecting your child from the worst case scenario, but about giving them the financial tools to really thrive.
I totally agree. It's about shifting from reactive financial planning to proactive empowerment.
Now, I know we've been highlighting the benefits, but surely there are some downsides or challenges we need to think about too, right? What are some things people should be aware of?
You're absolutely right. Got to look at both sides of the coin. And the sources do address some potential drawbacks. One of the biggest ones is the cost, like we touched on earlier. Premiums for whole life can be a lot higher than term life insurance, especially if you're starting a policy for a young child.
Makes sense. With whole life, you're paying for both the death benefit and the cash value.
Exactly. And for some families, those higher premiums might just not be doable, especially if they have other financial priorities, like paying off debt or saving for their own retirement.
So you really need to look at your budget and your goals before jumping in.
Absolutely. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution. Another potential challenge is that whole life insurance, it's a long-term commitment. We're talking a contract that could last for decades.
It's not something you can just try out and then back out of easily.
Exactly. It's important to really understand the terms before making a decision.
You know, something that struck me in the sources was the idea that not everyone in the family might be on board with this approach. What if you, as the parent, are all in on the financial vaccine, but your child has different ideas for their financial future?
That's a great point. And the sources acknowledge that it can be tricky. They emphasize that your role as the financial pioneer is to start those money conversations, educate your kids about different tools and strategies, but ultimately, you have to respect their choices. They get to decide their own path.
So it's about giving them the knowledge, not dictating their choices.
Exactly. And remember, what worked for your generation might not be the best fit for theirs. Times change, the financial landscape changes, individual situations are different.
It's about striking that balance,
Yeah.
guiding them, but giving them the freedom to make their own financial choices.
Precisely. And that's part of what makes the financial vaccine concept so interesting. It's not a rigid formula. It's a starting point for ongoing conversations about money and well-being.
I love that perspective. It's about planting the seeds of financial literacy, empowering them to make informed, responsible decisions about their own finances.
Well said. Now, I know we've covered a lot today, but there's one more piece of the financial vaccine puzzle I want to explore before we wrap up.
I'm all ears. What's that?
The sources emphasize that whole life insurance isn't just about building wealth, it's about protecting it too. And they talk about something I find fascinating: legacy planning.
Legacy planning. That sounds intriguing. Tell me more.
So, in the context of whole life insurance, legacy planning is about how you use the death benefit and that cash value to provide for your loved ones even after you're gone.
It's like extending that financial security to future generations.
Exactly. And the sources highlight a few ways whole life insurance can do this. First, there's the death benefit itself. If you pass away, that benefit provides a significant sum of money to your beneficiaries, whether it's your kids, grandkids, or other loved ones.
So it's like a safety net for their well-being, even in your absence.
Right. And because the death benefit is usually tax-free, your beneficiaries get the full amount, no deductions.
That's a huge plus when dealing with large sums of money.
Absolutely.
I'm really starting to see how whole life insurance can be a powerful tool for building and protecting a financial legacy.
It's a versatile tool that can address so many financial goals, from protecting your loved ones today to ensuring their well-being for generations to come.
This whole financial vaccine concept has really been eye-opening. It's not just about death. It's about life and opportunity and creating a lasting financial legacy.
Couldn't agree more. It all starts with that proactive mindset, that willingness to be a financial pioneer for your family.
Well said. This has been such an insightful deep dive.
I've really enjoyed our conversation.
Before we move on, I want to bring back that question we asked earlier.
You mean the one about taking action?
Exactly. Knowing everything we've talked about today, what's one concrete step you could take this week to start building that financial immunity for your child?
It's a great question to think about. It pushes us to go beyond just listening and consider how to actually apply this stuff in our lives.
Absolutely. And remember, even a small step today can have a huge impact down the line.
Well said. I think it's time to shift gears a bit and explore another aspect of this financial vaccine idea.
Sounds good to me. What do you have in mind?
Let's dive into financial education and how we can equip our kids with the knowledge and skills they need to make smart money decisions.
I love it. A financial vaccine isn't just about providing resources. It's about empowering our kids to manage their own finances wisely.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
about giving them the tools to be financially independent and confident in navigating the complex world of money.
So let's explore how to bring financial literacy into their lives, starting from a young age.
I'm excited to dig into this. It's such a crucial part of the financial vaccine, a key ingredient in empowering future generations to achieve true financial well-being.
This deep dive is just getting more and more interesting.
Okay, so we agree that financial education is super important, but it can feel overwhelming, right? Like, where do you even start? How do you make it stick with kids without, turning it into a boring lecture?
Yeah, I was just thinking that. I'm no financial expert. How am I supposed to be the guru for my kids?
You don't have to be a guru. The key is to make it a part of everyday life. Start small. Kids are always watching, picking things up from their environment.
So less formal lessons, more just integrating it into what they already see and do.
Exactly. With little kids, something as simple as giving them an allowance and helping them divide it into jars, spending, saving, maybe even donating. That's powerful stuff.
I like that. They can actually see where their money goes, make choices about how to use it. What about as they get older? How do you bring in more complex ideas without losing them?
As they grow, you can layer in more. Talk about needs versus wants, saving for goals, even how interest works. A trip to the grocery store can be a learning experience, comparing prices, looking for sales, it all adds up.
It's like turning everyday stuff into financial lessons, showing them that money management is part of life, not just some separate thing.
You got it. And leading by example is huge. If they see you budgeting, saving, making smart choices, they're more likely to do the same.
It's true. Actions speak louder than words. You can talk about responsibility all you want, but if you're not living it, it won't mean much.
Exactly. And there are so many resources out there geared specifically for kids. Books, games, apps, even things that make learning about money fun.
That's key because, honestly, finances aren't always the most exciting topic. But if you make it a game, something they can interact with, it's a lot more engaging.
Right. As they get older, you can introduce more advanced stuff investing, different types of insurance, understanding credit.
It's like building a financial literacy toolkit that grows with them.
And remember, this isn't about turning them into financial wizards overnight. It's about giving them the basics and the critical thinking skills to make good decisions throughout their lives.
It's about setting them up to be financially independent, confident in handling their own money.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And when you combine that education with the proactive steps of building a strong foundation, like we discussed with the financial vaccine, that's where the real magic happens.
This whole deep dive has been amazing. We've gone from the metaphor of a financial vaccine to the potential of whole life insurance, and even this idea of making financial education fun and engaging. It's really empowering to realize that we have the power to shape our children's financial futures.
And it's not just about protecting them from hardship, it's about giving them the tools to be financially savvy and secure. It's about opening up a world of opportunity for them.
It all comes down to taking action. Even small steps today can make a huge difference in their lives down the road.
Absolutely. And on that note, this has been a fantastic discussion. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thank you so much for joining today's episode. I hope you found value in the discussion on creating financial resilience for the next generation. Remember, it's all about those small, consistent steps towards a secure future. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and feel free to reach out with any thoughts or questions. Until next time, keep building that legacy.